Yuria.
残された思い出は美しいまま
Hello everyone. Today we'll be unboxing a statue for this week. Here we have is a statue from the manufacturer's Prime1Studio. A statue part of their Premium Masterline is a 1/4 scale bonus version of the characters Kenshiro and Yuria, unified as the polar star of love. From the series Hokuto no Ken, or Fist of the North Star. As always, before we take the statue out of their packaging, just in case you didn't know, Hokuto no Ken, or Fist of the North Star, is a manga that was serialized in Shueisha's Weekly Shonen Jump in 1983, which the manga written by Okamura Yoshiyuki with the pen name Buronson, and the art illustrated by Tetsuo Hara. The series has gotten an anime adaptation that was aired in 1984 by Studios Toei Animation, while also adapting the second half of the series, but named Hokuto no Ken 2, or Fist of the North Star 2, aired in 1987. While the series also having a 2026 adaptation, which I will be discussing at the end of the video. The franchise being considered the most influential manga, having a variety of spin-offs, side stories, novels, games, and other adaptations. Prime1Studio releases this statue in celebration of the series' 40th anniversary in 2023, being a little late, but this was released this year of 2025. As you can see here, this is Kenshiro and Yuria being named Polar Star of Love, named by the artist Tetsuo Hara. After the union of love of Ursa Major and Ursa Minor constellations, this is the bonus version that comes with an extra head sculpt for Yuria. This is its box, a little bit large, so it's different angles that I'm showing here and close-up shots. So, without holding you guys back, let's just take Kenshiro and Yuria out of their packaging and see how they look. So here we have is the styrofoam where the statue does come packaged, and is actually 2 layerings. So here on the top layer we got is Kenshiro and all the other accessories from this top portion here. And as you can see, it is wrapped with tissue paper to protect the statue from getting any damages when it comes to the paint. And this is before I remove all the tissue paper out of each part here. And here is after removing the tissue paper out of some areas. As you can see here, we get is an arm, a bit of other hand sculpt and arm sculpt for Yuria, a long cloth here piece which connects to Yuria, and a little string there that goes into one of the Neo Guardians. And here we have is the sculpt of Kenshiro, where you can see he's all assembled, so we don't really need to put him together. And the statue actually looks really nice looking. So this is actually the top layering, so we're gonna move on to the bottom layer. So here is the bottom layer here, where we do get is the base and also the other accessory parts for Yuria. As you can see here, is also wrapped with tissue paper to protect the statue from getting any damage on the paint. And And here is it right after I removed the tissue paper in some of the areas here. So here we have is the two sculpts here for Yuria's head, his body. We also get is a little structure piece here that goes onto the base. We have is the base, and on the top is another little structure that it does come with where you connect it onto the base. So besides that, let's just take all of this and see how the statue looks. My statue box here, it did come with this little promo sheet here promoting one of their other statue lines from Prime1Studio, which is the Jurassic Park 3 line here with the velociraptors. I just thought I'd show you this. So here is a 2024 statues catalog sheet or booklet here that they do provide here with the statue. As you can see here, it's just basically, as I stated, a catalog sheet here where it shows you some of their other statues or upcoming statues to be released that they announced in 2024 here. You can see Levi, Berserk, John Wick, and some of these statues are actually pretty cool. Here we have his Transformers, Street Fighter here, and we're not going to gloss over too much with this, but I did want to show you guys each of the statues. We have his Full Metal Alchemist, Godzilla, here we have his Horizon, here we have his Chainsaw Man and Made in Abyss, which we obviously not waiting for this one to be released. Here we have his Gurren Lagann, Predator. Here we have his other Batman statues. We have his Cyberpunk Harley Quinn, Harry Potter, reincarnated into the slime. We have the Poison Ivy, the same Jurassic Park that we saw earlier with the two little sheets. Here we have his Batman, and we have his Black Clover. And we have his The Last of Us here, and another info here at the Painter's Guide. But besides that, it's a pretty nice booklet, but that's also what you get. It's neat that they also included that. So here is the assembly instructions guide. As you can see, it's just one large sheet. And on the top section here, we do have this little bit of a promo art they have here in the front, where it shows you different angles of the statues when it comes to Prime1Studio. Here we have is a storage reference sheet here, with all the individual parts on like a flat surface, and also how they look when they're in the styrofoam packaging like we saw earlier. Here we do get is 3 languages, English, Japanese, and Mandarin Chinese, showing you as a warning or a caution section. So that should be the front page. The assembly instructions guide here. You can pause the video and also get a closer look if you want. Here is the back, where you do get the step-by-step of how to connect all the parts together, and also a little picture there on the side. And the first thing I noticed here, that there is a lot of warnings on this. As you can see, this little section here where there's a fragile piece, so do be careful when you are handling it. We have is another warning, where I'm guessing Yuri's hand sculpt gets really close to Kenshiro. So again, do be careful with that, because the magnets tend to pull and you want to avoid any damages, and you want to avoid damaging. And we have is another section with the frills, I'm guessing, of Yuri's dress, and also with Kenshiro's hand sculpt here. And yeah, it's a lot. So as you can see here, you can pause the video. I'll show you guys all the steps in closer view. Apologize for a little bit of the glare. And yeah, but don't worry, we are going to be following this step by step in this video. So, and also the bonus version here, I think it's included only for Prime1Studio's website, and also third-party sellers that they approve of. But besides that, there's not really much else to show you with this assembly instructions guide, but it's actually pretty neat. So let's just move on to the actual statue. So here is the bottom of the statue, which we're not going to be seeing this anymore, so I wanted to show you guys it here. We do get is Yuria and Kenshiro Polar Star of Love, Buronson, and Tetsuo Hara, and other information here such as your edition size, and also a little bit of cool art here at the bottom. But this is going to be the last time we're going to be seeing this. So here we have is the base that the statue does come with, as you can see here. And I actually really do like the way it is designed, or should I say the bottom of the base's outer structure. As you can see, it's almost like a mixture of a futuristic and a like temple-ish type structure here. You can kind of see like almost futuristic in some areas, and also has other patterns like when you go into a temple. And here we have is one of the Buddhist guardians, which is a Neo Guardian, which I think this one is the open mouth, so this is Agyo, and the one that has the closed mouth is Ungyo, which I didn't know the first time I did the Kenshiro unboxing, but I did learn that later on. The base is actually a little bit unique, rather than having it just gray, as you can see here like on these pipe structures, is a mixture of a purple bluish type hue around the base, which is a little bit more unique rather than having a gray rock setting, which like I said, this is supposed to be representing the 40th anniversary, so they try to make it like a little bit more pop color feel. And I know a lot of people, I did see a comment that they say that the coloring doesn't really fit with the rest of the statues, but we'll get to that later on in the video. Here it actually looks quite well painted. I really do like the way it's structured here. You can see like a mixture of destroyed buildings and also a little bit of the symbolic temple-ish type feel, if that makes sense, with the Neo Guardian head here on the side. And just like you see here, around the whole base it has the same color design with purple and blue, and you do get some areas that is gray, but it's not really too much, or it's mostly towards the top of the base, where you do get more of the regular color, such as like gray, brown, and other stuff. But it's actually sculpted quite well. I don't really see much to say anything bad about it. We do get an insert hole here where you do put Kenshiro's foot, and also the top layer here where you do also place his other foot to lay on top of. We do get the insert hole here for those structures that we saw earlier. And yeah, I think the color and the paint is really nice on this. It's a lot more brighter than the other Hokuto no Ken line statues, but it makes it like kind of like a separate, unique piece compared to those other ones. But yeah, there's not really much else to show you, so we're gonna move on to the next piece of the statue. So as you can see here, we do place this Kenshiro's foot here that comes with a peg, and his other foot that lays on top of it. And before I insert that here, I did want to show you guys here Ken's right foot that actually has the insert peg there. Here I want to show you guys here that his boot and his left foot is actually detailed at the bottom. So we're going to be connecting this here, and then I'm laying it flat here. So do be careful when you are connecting it. So this is Kenshiro right after we connected him onto the base. And here, starting from his boot area, as you can see, it actually looks quite well painted. It's a lot reminiscent to the older Kenshiro sculpt they did do, which matches our lines quite almost the same, but they do have a difference of color variant compared to the black jacket or black leather jacket he does sport. Here we have is him wearing a more of a blue attire, which I do notice that usually celebrating its anniversary, just like the 15th anniversary, they usually have him wearing a blue leather outfit rather than the typical black that we usually see. And I'm not certain which one's the original color variant, because I know there's a black in the manga version, but then there's also a blue variant, which the blue reminds me a little bit more from the original anime. It could be either or, but I do notice usually when they're celebrating Kenshiro's or Hokuto no Ken's 40 or anniversaries, they tend to go with more of a blue jacket. So as we see here, the sculpt is actually quite nice. You can see when you zoom into his pants here, the texture work they added kind of reminds me when we saw Jagi's jacket. You can kind of see like a more of a little texture work around it. There's some areas that are light blue, and I don't know if you see by his belt and all of his other accessories, there's a kind of a little bit of a purplish blue tint to it, just like we saw on his base. And before I continue on, his hand sculpt here is really amazing. You can see the texture work they added for his hand, and the paint job they did there looks really great. You can kind of see like small veins. This section here where you can see like more of the larger veins around his arm, which is really well sculpted and looks really detailed, which I think the original Kenshiro sculpt was almost the same, but I think because this is a newer, more updated model of Kenshiro, it looks a lot more detailed than the older one. Here we have his shoulder pad there, and like I said earlier, it does have a little bit of a purplish bluish hue to it, to some of the areas where like towards the base is like almost the light is flowing upwards. So towards like some areas of his like jacket and belt, you see like kind of like a mixture of a purple with a slightish blue hue around it, almost as if the light from the bottom is shooting upwards towards Kenshiro. Here we have this side of his shoulder guard here, which again looks really well sculpted. It looks almost the same as the older Kenshiro, but I think the texture work and the paint on his arm is a lot more detailed than what we got. So compared to the other Kenshiro, you can see here his Kenshiro is actually missing his left arm, or hand I should say. That's because we connect Yuria onto his shoulder, which is a little bit different because the original Kenshiro, he had his whole body all sculpted out. This is almost similar, but is only missing his left arm. Here we have his face, which I'm a little bit mixed about his face. I don't know, there's just something about it that kind of feels a little bit off. I don't know what it is. I don't know if you guys agree with what I'm saying, but his face is like, well, besides that, I think his face is amazingly sculpted, and you can kind of see by his nose area, they did paint a little bit of a purplish hue around it, like I said, with the rest of his body. So it's not perfectly like the regular skin tone. It's like a mixture of paint, of like purple paint around it. But something about his face feels a little bit off. Maybe it's his eyes. His eyes are a little bit like too wide, or maybe I'm just used to the older Kenshiro sculpt where he has more of a closed eyes rather than a large eyes. I mean, or maybe that's just me. But the sculpt here with his hair looks great, and it actually gave him blue hair rather than black hair, which makes sense with the color palette that they did choose for this statue. So here we have is the back of his head, and you can see there is a insert hole here by his neck area, so we don't get a full sculpt of hair. It's more like it's cut in half in this section, which you do connect Yuri's arm because she's like has it around him like the damsel in distress. And again, you can see we don't really get a full black hair. It's more of a bluish with a little bit of purple hue around it. And honestly, the sculpt looks really great. You can kind of see his shoulder pads here as we see a little bit more detail from this angle. It's all scratched up and all beat up because, you know, he's in the wastelands fighting super muscular thugs. And yeah, the sculpt here looks really great. Again, it's similar to the other Kenshiro sculpt, besides this section here of his shoulder pads, where we do get as an additional extension of these little, what do you call those little, I don't know the proper name you call those little things hanging by his shoulder pad, but I'm just gonna say these little chains here with the that hangs from the side. That's a little bit different detail compared to the older one, but it still looks great. Here's the back of his arm sculpt. Again, I think they did a really amazing job with his skin. You can kind of see it looks quite realistic. Maybe not by the tips of his fingers, they kind of look smushed together, but the rest of his, like his, you can see his elbow there looks really well sculpted. It looks quite realistic, especially for a manga piece, which kind of tells you something when the manga is actually drawn really well. I think this statue really captures Tetsuo Hara's style, and it actually looks really great, which I think he did actually mention in his interview that it does really capture his art style, which it should be a compliment. So going back to this section, we do see is the little bit of a blue purplish hue by this little, what do you call this, it's slipping my mind. His belt, you see there's a little bit of hue around it, which with leathery texture around his pants, which looks really amazing. Here's the back of his boot, which also looks really great. So overall, the statue looks really well sculpted. It's actually a lot reminiscent to the original Kenshiro sculpt they did have. So there's not really too much difference besides the color variant. So let's just move on to the next part of the statue. So here we have a structured piece, which I'm believing this is supposed to be a part of, like almost like their temple of where they used to train. And as you can see, it actually captures the unique aesthetic that it does have. It kind of has like a mixture of a futuristic setting towards the top, and then the inside and around the structure is like almost like the temple building. And just like I said with the base, there is a mixture of a bluish purple with a bit of gray in some areas. So you can see one side here is purple blue while the other side is gray. And as I stated earlier, you can see there's like a futuristic setting on the top area here, which kind of makes sense because it's like when they went to go into the bunkers. So this connects to this section. So the piece is actually quite heavy, so do be careful when you are inserting it into the base. This is how it will actually look. It actually fits quite snug into that insert hole. So again, just like you saw earlier, do be extremely careful when you are connecting this to avoid any chipping or breaking. So this is the other structure, which instead of having a insert peg, it is just a magnet. And again, it kind of captures the temple-ish aesthetic to it. You can kind of see it has almost like a pillar, which you can see a little bit of a pattern on the inside or on the sides here. And just like I stated earlier, there is a purple bluish hue around it with a mixture of gray. And you can see the top here, just like the other structure we saw, there's like a metallic looking object in the center, which I'm going to assume is like a metal beam that goes into it, unless it's supposed to be a different futuristic setting in between the thing, in between the structure, which I don't really remember it being a little bit futuristic, unless you count the nuclear bomb and the little fallout shelter that they went into, if this is supposed to be representing that. But it actually is quite unique, but it's not really too much detail to show you about this, so this does connect to this insert here. So this is how the two structures will look when they are inserted together. Because these are actually connected, this makes the base a lot heavier than what it is. So just make sure you be careful when you are, connecting this, that you're not able to shift it, because of these two structures, it makes the base a lot heavier than what it is. So moving on to Yuria, as you can see, here we have is one of her hand sculpts, which goes around Kenshiro's neck, where we saw the insert hole by his neck area. This is the sculpt, or the hand sculpt that you do connect. and you can kind of see the palm of her hand is actually quite detailed when it comes to her nails and the crease lines around her palm. And just like I stated earlier, there's a little bit of a hue around her hand, and her hand sculpt or arm sculpt here is not all the way sculpted. You can kind of see the backside is flat, which is because it lays on top of Kenshiro, so it's not a fully sculpted hand, only towards the top layer, and also the little section there where you do see the insert peg and this other insert peg here by the top of it. But the pattern here and the texture work around her arm sleeve here looks really well. You can kind of see in this area here, which is quite detailed. So I guess let's just connect this to Kenshiro's neck. Again, I do be advised, be extremely careful because this gets real close to some areas, so to avoid any damages, do be cautious when you are connecting this area. But this is how it would look when you connect it. So here's the insert peg of Yuria's body sculpt, and do be extremely careful when you are connecting this part. I did actually struggle a little bit, but do not use too much force because her peg there actually has a magnet. So it connects towards Kenshiro, so it kind of makes it a little bit hard. So just make sure you take your time when you are connecting both sides, so it just slides in smoothly and you don't put too much force to avoid any breakage. I just wanted to advise you on that because I actually struggled with this part. So here we have is Yuria starting from her boots area. I really do like the way she's actually looks like she's hovering, which is quite unique, but that's because most of her body is being supported by the peg and the magnet that's connected to Kenshiro. And this section here of her cloth, be extremely careful because it's quite flimsy, so you can actually flick that area and actually snap it. So do be cautious when you are handling this piece. I think the booklet or the instructions guide also says that, so I'm also telling you that because it does feel like you can break this section. But the texture work on her fabric and her boots look really well. Just like Kenshiro, they kind of gave it like a groovy texture work around her cloth and also her boots, which gives it more of a realistic feel rather than just a flat finish when we usually see on regular, like, you know, PVC figures. The paintwork around it with the gold mixture in with light purple and bright purple looks really well. They sculpted her thigh really nicely. You kind of see some of her areas are not as, or her pants are tight, but there's some areas where you kind of see a little bit of fabric folds. You can see this section here by the frills of her dress. Do be cautious with that because it does feel fragile, just like the instructions did say. So do be cautious in that area if you do get this statue. You can see the back area is not that detailed, but that's because you are going to be putting a long cape around Yuria. So this back section is not as detailed as the other side because you can kind of see a little bit of inconsistencies in some areas. But this front here looks really well painted. There's some areas that look a little bit off, like you can see the little gold lines around her dress there are somewhat decently painted, but it still looks really beautiful. You can see the top area of her bosom is kind of close to Kenshiro, and you can see the pattern there by her dress looks really nice, and also the little frills around the front area by her bosom looks really well. You can see the insert hole here for her other hand sculpt, and as I stated earlier, you can see this section here. It's detailed, but a little bit more darker in shade and color. That's because we're going to be putting her cape behind there. And you can see the skin on her top portion there is connected to her head sculpt, so you do not see that sculpted onto her body. But this is how her body should look when you're connecting it, and it actually looks really well, and I really do like the way she actually looks. So before we move on, here we have is the Angyo's little headgear here, which is flying in the air, or frills like floating, which I think they're supposed to be tied, so I wonder, do they sculpt it open like this? Well, I'm not too knowledgeable with Buddhists, but yeah, this is the little section here that goes here that's open rather than closed. So here we have is the cape, as I stated earlier, and as you can see, the top portion of the cape is darker, or shaded in a darker color, you know, because it's behind Yuria, so it gives it more of a shade. While going around it is actually a quite large piece of fabric, or sculpted fabric here, which looks actually, there's not really much I can say about it. I do like the way they sculpted, like they made it in a way like it's flowing in the air with all these crease lines around it. It's the same texture work we see it with Yuria's dress, so it does match, and the gold around it looks, around the edges, looks really well painted. And besides that, there's not really much else to add. So it does go behind there, but it does get real close to the Neo Guardian's head. So do be extremely careful when you are connecting this part, that you don't rub the paint. And this is how it should look when you are connecting it. So again, because it's extremely big, do be cautious when you are connecting it, because it does kind of rub against the Neo Guardian's head at the bottom. So here we have is the sculpt for Kenshiro's arm here, including his hand, and you can kind of see his fingers in between are actually stuck together, which I feel like that could have been removed. I wonder why they kept it like that, because the original Kenshiro sculpt, his fingers were all separate, but here it kind of looks like a webbed feet. And here you can kind of see what I'm talking about. The bottom of Kenshiro's arm is dark purple, and his skin tone's a lot more darker than what we see. But that's because the light coming from the bottom shining upwards. Where I rotate the hand this way, it's light. So see, dark, and it actually looks quite unique. And its paint looks really, like you can see here, it's like dark. As I move it around, you can kind of see it starts to get a little bit more brighter as I turn it this way, which is the top portion where you can see it's regular skin tone, which quite unique for a statue. This is the first time I've seen something like this, but I kind of feel like they should have just kept it with his regular skin color. But the texture work here in his palm looks really well. Here we have the little fabric around his arm, and there's a little bit of an indent here where Yuri's hand does get placed over it. Here we have the little magnet at the bottom. So yeah, this here is the magnet. And besides that, there's not really much else to show you. And so let's just connect this part into his arm. So this is how it should look after you connect the two pieces together. Be careful with this area because his arm does get really close to Yuria, and you want to avoid any paint damage around it. So it's actually quite unique. So I think we have to put Yuria's arm right on top of his. So let's just do that. So here we have is the other arm sculpt for Yuria, and as I stated, this also has a purplish hue around it, so it kind of does look like she has frostbite, but don't worry, that's not frostbite. That's the purple color hue that's coming from the bottom of the base upwards. So that's why her fingers look this color. So it's not completely the same skin tone that she has, but they gave it a little bit of a unique feel. You can kind of see almost like a fleur de lis, I think was what you call that pattern, by her dress area. And this is the other section where her palms, again, looks really detailed and realistic, going around to her dress sleeve here, which again, same texture work with the rest of her dress, captures it quite well and is actually quite detailed. You can kind of see there's a little bit of fabric fold here, and in this area is another little spot where it goes on top of Kenshiro's arm here, which is not sculpted completely, so you don't really get a full sculpt. It's more pressed up against him. And here we have is the insert magnet here that goes onto her body. So besides that, it's actually a quite detailed part of her arm here, which captures it really well. Again, I don't really like the way they made her fingertips purple, but I get why they did it because of what they're trying to, or the pattern they have here. So a really nice sculpt. So let's connect her arm to her body. So this is how it should look. Again, it's not noticeable, the purple hue around it, because it's all connected. But again, the sculpt looks really beautiful. After this, I don't really think there's any other accessories that it does come with. So now we're going to move on to her Yuria's face sculpt that we'll be showing you, who I'll be showing you guys next. So here we have is Yuria's head sculpt, and as I stated earlier, her neck area to the front of her chest is actually connected together, and you can see the magnet, and her shoulder pad here, or her shoulder guard, is sculpted together, which is quite unique. But I wonder why they did that rather than having them separately. Maybe they had an issue with her hair maybe chipping off when you're connecting them, so they decided to go with both of them, or everything here as you see connected. So her hair, I'm assuming, is all translucent, but because they shaded this more of a lighter color, you can kind of see the tips of her hair are translucent, while the rest of it is painted with a darker color. And you can kind of see her face, it has a mixture of a purplish like we saw with Kenshiro. Her nose here by the side, you can kind of see they painted it purple. And this is her, I think, the default head sculpt that you do get when you do order it. And her lips are painted quite well with a glossy finish, which looks really well sculpted and painted. I really do like the way it looks. You can kind of see her small little nose, her eyebrows, and she does have her eyes closed. Her front bangs swaying in the air or going sideways because she's slightly towards tilted head. And the detail work on her hair looks really amazing. You can kind of see the side profile of her face there, but her hair is really well. The tips of her bangs, be careful with that, because if you flick it you can break that, so do be careful. Here's the top of her hair, which again looks really well sculpted. You can kind of see the middle section where it does separate from the tip of her hairs. And going to the back section here, it does split off from this area towards the back. And again, it's since her head is slightly tilted to the side, you can see the rest of her hair here flowing downwards. And I noticed that there's some areas from the tip of her hairs that are connected together, and also her hair is not flexible, so when you do get this, be careful when you are handling this. And like I said earlier, you can kind of see some tips of the hair are actually combined together, so I just wanted to show you guys that because it looked a little bit unique. but the tips of her hair are translucent, so I'm assuming the whole hair sculpt is translucent. But because they decided to go with two different colors, from the tips being purple all the way to the top being darker shade of color. But it really captures Yuria's hair, which looks really beautiful. But compared to that, the sculpt looks really amazing. So let's just connect this to the actual body. So this final shoulder guard here is actually separate, so you do connect this right after you connect Yuri's head sculpt. It looks quite detailed. It matches the same shoulder guard she has that's connected to her head sculpt, so this goes into the little insert hole from the side. Here we have is the bonus version head sculpt, which this one here is, her head is actually slightly towards up, and again, just like the other head sculpt, her front of her neck area with one of the shoulder guards are connected onto the head sculpt, which again is quite unique. I don't know why they decided to do that. Again, it could be maybe issues when having them separately, that it connects too much to the base to avoid any breakage, so that could be a possibility, but I'm not certain. And again, by her neck and her face are similarly painted to, as we saw earlier with Kenshiro, with a little bit of purplish hue around her skin. And the detail work here on her shoulder pad and to her hair looks quite well. Again, the same translucent material they used for the other head sculpt hair, it's the same one they used for this one. And great amount of detail here with the hair, and her face looks really beautiful. And you see her lips painted, you can see the bottom of her neck, a little bit of collarbone and a little bit of texture work by her neck looks really nice. Here we have is a side profile, so this one here being a little bit different because her eyes are open, so she's more of awake, has a awake expression, and you can kind of see more detail work on her eyes, and you can kind of see her ears from the bottom here. And again, here's her face, here's the side profile from her side. Again, she looks really well. You can see her nose curved upwards, the front bangs here, and covering a little bit of her eyebrows, but not too much because her head's actually looking upwards. Her hair flows a little bit more down. And again, her face looks really well sculpted. You can kind of see the purple hue around her nose. It actually looks really beautiful. I can see why Kenshiro really loved Yuria. And you can see the hair sculpt looks again really amazing. So here we have is the top of the head, which is sculpted quite well. The top looks almost similar to the other hair, to the other head, but you can see going down, it flows differently from the other head sculpt. And again, all the little detail they added with all these lines gives it more of a feel of hair. And again, just like the other head sculpt, the tips of these hairs are not flexible, so do be careful when you are handling this. As I'm showing you guys here, they do not flex, so be careful when you are handling this. And just like the other one, some of the tips of these hairs actually connect together, so it's quite unique as well. And the bottom tips of her hair are actually a little bit translucent, so I'm assuming the whole hair sculpt is translucent as well. But besides that, the sculpt is actually really amazing. It's actually really beautiful. I'm probably going to be using this head sculpt for the statue rather than the closed eyes. But yeah, it looks really beautiful. So let's just connect Yuria onto her actual body. So you do have to actually connect this part of her shoulder pad first before actually connecting her head sculpt. So just make sure you do that before. Now here we have is both head sculpts side by side. As you can see that you can see one of her head is actually slightly tilted to the side, while the one that she has more of the awake expression, that she is more upwards. And it actually looks really nice. Both head sculpts look really well sculpted. And remember, the bonus version is not included for, I guess, other third-party sellers, but I think they still carry the bonus head. So I don't really think there's a regular one that doesn't come with it. But you can pause the video and get a closer look at how both head sculpts looked. But this is how they would look side by side. And that should complete the Polar Star of Love. So before we actually end it off, I did want to show you guys how the statues all looked aligned together. So these are the ones that I currently own, which, disclaimer, they're not all elevated together. So Rao's slightly downwards while Jagi's a little bit propped upwards. So if you were curious, Rao is actually the largest statue in the line. But here, this is how I have them all aligned together. So I apologize for the lighting. I didn't expect to actually record this, but I decided to add this and include this into the video. So this is the bonus version of Jagi, the deluxe version of Kenshiro, and the ultimate deluxe version of Rao. I do not have the Omaiwa mo Shinderu version of Kenshiro, nor do I have the gold versions of Kenshiro and Rao. But these are the ones that I actually own, so I did want to show you guys how they look together and how I have them aligned here. And I did want to say I do agree with a comment that I did see in my previous video. The color palette that they do have for the Polar Star of Love does not match with the rest of the line. You can see that it's actually a little bit of an odd one out, but the color variant of this Kenshiro is a lot different from the regular version, and as I stated previously, the face is a lot different, with the regular Kenshiro looking a little bit more combat ready. But I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit more used to this sculpt of Kenshiro, which is why I find the Polar Star of Love a little bit more, a little bit more off to Kenshiro. But so because this is maybe the more updated version of Kenshiro, his face is a little bit more different from the original. But again, maybe I'm a little bit more used to this face here being his regular sculpt. Maybe because this is the original one I owned. But again, here's another shot of Rao, which I did make an unboxing for that one. The lighting's a little bit off for that unboxing. That was before I had a dedicated spot to unbox these statues. But his sculpt looks really amazing, and his whole attire and stuff looks really awesome. While I also have is Jagi's sculpt here on the side, which I did make an unboxing of that one, which I am proud of. So if you have not seen it, go check it out. I really love the way I made the intro. Here we have is the Guardians that the deluxe version of Kenshiro, which is the regular sculpt, comes with. And as you can see, it actually looks really great. Again, I'm more used to this facial sculpt of Kenshiro compared to the more, bluer, wider-eyed Kenshiro we got for the Polar Star of Love. And again, his attire is almost the same, so it's almost like the same as the Polar Star of Love, but the color variant is a little bit, different from the sculpt that we have here from the original Kenshiro sculpt. And his face, again, like I said, is slightly different. It's a little bit off than what we saw in the original sculpt, but it still looks like a really beautiful piece. But again, it feels off compared to the other sculpts here we have with the rest of the brothers of the Hokuto Shin Ken. So I really hope Prime1Studio comes out with a Toki 1/4 scale. So maybe I can move the Polar Star of Love out of here and add Toki with the rest of the line. So this is how it would look if you have all of them lined up together. Again, disclaimer, Jagi's a little bit more propped upwards while Rao's a little bit more propped downwards, so it's not fully aligned. So I think Rao will be the tallest one here. But this is how I have them displayed, so if you were curious, you can pause it and you can kind of tell the Polar Star of Love color is a lot more different compared to the other ones. So you can pause the video, see how the statues look, and again I apologize for the lighting. I didn't expect to do this part of the video, but I decided to do it for you guys. Alright guys, so that was Prime1Studio's Ultimate Premium Masterline 1/4 scale Polystone statue of the character Kenshiro and Yuria. Ai no Kyokuse, or Polar Star of Love, bonus version. So all in all, I gotta say is, I actually really find this statue really beautiful, especially with the addition of the bonus version with Yuria's head sculpt, with her open eyes. With Kenshiro, looks really beautiful. Again, as I stated earlier, I do agree with the color palette being a little bit off with the rest of the line with the Hokuto brothers. I don't really find this necessary for you to buy if you already own the other characters. This feels like more of a separate piece if you want to have it in celebration of Hokuto no Ken, or if you do not have the rest of the line and you want to own a Hokuto no Ken statue. This is a perfect piece to have to represent the series. I wasn't actually going to get this, but the reason why I purchased this was because it came with a Yuria 1/4 sculpt, which I kind of wanted to have, so I decided to buy this version of the Hokuto no Ken statue. Unless Prime1Studio comes out with a 1/4 scale Yuria and her Nanto Ryokusei Ken Saigo no Sho, which her last general armor, which would kind of be cool to have, but before I see that, I want to see a Toki 1/4 scale statue, maybe with an Amoeba bonus head sculpt. Speaking of Toki, the original voice actor for Toki, Takayahashi, sadly passed away of this year, who has also voiced other characters in his career, but I think a lot of people know him as being the original Toki voice actor. So I did want to give a brief moment of silence for the passing of Takayahashi. So without making this a little bit more sad than what it is, I do want to see a Toki 1/4 scale statue from Prime1Studios to complete the Brothers of the Hokuto Shin Ken. So that's going to be the end of this one, guys. I don't want to keep holding you guys back. I'm going to leave you guys off with close-up shots and different angles of the statues. What do you guys think personally of this statue? Do you own the other statues in the line like I do? Do you find this necessary to own as someone who owns the other ones? Personally, as I stated earlier, I don't really think this is necessary to have if you already have the other statues. But if you do not have the statues, this will be a cool piece to have to represent the series on your shelf. So, I don't want to keep holding you guys back. And hopefully I showed you guys enough of the statue. So, that's going to be the end of this one, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Prime1Studios, if anyone does watch this, that work over there, please make a Toki statue. I'm waiting for it.
お前もとのさ
You are shy 愛で闇を切り裂いて You are shy 俺の闇を切り裂いて誰も二人の安らぎ壊すことできはしないさ引きつけ合う絆は離れない二度と俺との愛を守るためお前は旅立ち明日を見失った微笑み忘れた顔など見たくはないさ
such a lonesome night 二人のシルエット影ロボのように壁に滲んで見知らぬ国旅するように全てのこときらめいた夏思い出にしまい込むにはあまりにも早すぎて Please don't let me down 楽しいことだけ Don't wanna let you down あったはずなのに突き通す日差しの中ではしゃぎ